the right think the left are too idealist. Now the left think the right are too, I don't want to say fascistic. They think,
in my experience, it's just stuck up.
Yeah,
like, literally
okay,
just stuck up. They literally just think you're stuck up and privileged or something like that. So welcome to Open Talk, a place where we actively encourage open conversations from people from different backgrounds. I'm Richard Williams, and today I'm joined by Johnny.
I'm Johnny Cosmo. I'm a local poet and freelance creative and a politics student.
And today the topic is, why does the left hate the right? Which is quite a one-sided question, but I think it will open up the discussion in a creative way, because I guess in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, is that the left actively go out of their way to talk a lot of shit, a lot of hate about people from the right-hand side, and that's just my experiences moving up from the south up to Manchester. The culture up here definitely tends to be that way.
A more left-leaning, Labour supporting.
And they will they'll be very vocalised in saying like, okay, the right wing or Boris Johnson or anybody, or I guess Donald Trump, anybody else who does not believe in that are the enemy, and are people that should be actively talked down to, openly criticised, not even in a productive way, but in a way to, I guess, harm them, like, because they just don't like that person. In your experiences, how have you found that living up in Manchester?
Well, I'm actually from Preston. I don't live in Manchester, but it's still Lancashire, if you can count Manchester as Lancashire anymore. But it's interesting how you phrase the question, because my question would be the reverse. Why does the right hate the left? And from me living up north, and from what I've seen online or out and about in certain areas or travelling, it has been the opposite way with the right towards the left wing.
Yeah, definitely not for me.
Not from you, but I absolutely see where you're coming from, and I think really it's not really a case of one side over the other, or one might be more violent, aggressive, hostile.
So just to make that clear then too, in your experiences, you've experienced more hate as being to me sort of a bit more left-leaning.
I'd say right.
About
more
right.
From the right.
More from the right. Okay. So yes, I moved up to Manchester about a year and a half ago, and every time I meet people out and about, or on a night out, it's the first thing that's mentioned to me.
From the south.
Yeah, from the south, and maybe the accent.
Oh, you're a Tory.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, they already know who I am. They know what my values are. They know like exactly what to say to me to rile me up, and so it's just interesting. That's already quite a different experience. So when I'm often out in an area down here called the Northern Quarter. We sit on these like open tables, and there'll be like six or eight people there. I'll be out with one of my mates who's normally Welsh. And
he's normally Welsh.
He is Welsh, but like me and him hang out quite a lot, and the conversation that I will get directed at me is so different to the conversation he has directed at him. For him, it's not about his beliefs, and it's not about who he voted for, and for me it's always quite different. And I will visibly see people get upset with me, and try to actively disagree with me, actively change my mind about things
without even asking.
Yeah, they don't even know what I think.
They assume.
They're directly assuming that. And then on top of that, I am also a member of a few dating apps. And on these dating apps, I have never once seen somebody say like, "Oh, if you voted left, don't bother to swipe right," as in like, don't match with me. I've never once seen that.
No Tories.
I've never once seen that. And literally, it's only like 1 in 10 profiles, maybe that's an exaggeration, are doing it the other way around. So like, I feel very justified in saying like, there's a lot more hate going, from what I've seen, I've definitely seen a lot more hate going one way to the other way. Like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you sort of agreed or disagreed with any of the points we've made.
I mean, in that sense, in the political climate that we live in at the moment, we do have a right-wing government. And many people would be unsatisfied with the government, with the treatment to themselves or what they've seen reflectively in society. And what they're then seeing, they're then going to take on and wear it. As you've said, people are assuming your beliefs, assuming you to be right-wing. Well, they themselves assume their own beliefs by posting themselves as left-wing. I don't side with the political spectrum. I think it is an oversimplification of a much more philosophical issue and something that should be open to conversation.
I mean, I agree with you on that point in terms of you don't side with anything, but I feel like you have to side with one of them. Like in the way that we vote and the way that we act today in society, I wish it would be less stereotyped, like in terms of like you have to vote for the left or the right. I think that it would be great to have a different way. I know a few years back Russell Brand used to like champion sort of a new revolution and stuff, but basically nobody's really came up with a different way of going. Like, there's left party and then there's right party. In the UK, it's basically Labour or Conservative will get into power, and the same as in America, where there's only realistically two parties who are going to get into power, and you're saying you don't side with one of those. So, okay, in an election, what do you do?
See, you've got me now. You've got me now. See, if I do vote, I usually vote left.
Okay.
I usually vote Labour.
You're just dissatisfied with the system as a whole, but you still take an action, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really agree with the whole not voting thing as much as I can see why people would do that. Kind of take yourself out of it, but we need people to be involved. But to further add to the issue I brought up with the political spectrum, it's a polarised spectrum. And it can be one or the other, and it doesn't mix with all the social facticities that we have in our life. Like, say, how is abortion?
I don't understand that. Like, but is it?
Do you get what you?
Is that a right thing? Is abortion a right thing?
If you're against abortion, it's a right thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But
so
how do we do that? How can you have social planning and literally body?
That reminds me of something that I wanted to bring up on that point. So, like, what is the left wing and what is the right wing? So, from my very limited knowledge, the way I understood it was sort of the left wing is going to be more open hierarchies and more of a everybody's society are all equal, whereas the right side of it tend to be a bit more closed off. And a bit more like, there's a hierarchy, there's a structure in place. If you get this job, you earn this amount of money, and there's less of a safety net. So I guess it's more of a case of people in some way are not as equal, because you are in the left. You're way more. It's more about having everybody having the same amount.
In the sense of every animal is equal, but some animals are more equal than others, to quote George Orwell's Animal Farm.
And even though I don't like to think, like, because I'm either like a centralist or a right wing, but even like saying that out loud, saying like, there's a hierarchy basically to make people less equal sounds terrible. That does sound really bad.
That would put you, why do the left hate the right? Why does the right hate the left? We'll have it like that. It's funny to think that both of them don't actually like each other for an opposite kind of thing. Say the right think the left are too idealist. Now the left think the right are too I don't want to say fascistic. They think,
in my experience, it's just stuck up. Stuck up. They literally just think you're stuck up and privileged or something like that. And I guess historically, from my childhood, I probably should be a lot more left leaning, because I grew up in a council estate where everybody was left leaning. Everybody voted for Labour or Lib Dem was like the main party everybody voted for, which is very high the benefit system. And what I saw was a massive pitfall where people didn't have the in my opinion, the drive, the ambition to get out of that situation for themselves, because that solution was in fact, why don't we give them more money or more resources or more attention to get ourselves out of that situation? And I saw a disparity there, and that's why I guess I've leaned away towards that belief. But I've never really seen, I'm gonna have to choose my words carefully, people who are right-leaning try to go out their way to insult left-leaning people. And the only reason I can think that it could be, on top of the reasons earlier, that it's to do with the age gap, because so older people tend to vote right.
You never seen it on social media though?
No, I never see it on social. And if who's on social media, that's the thing, right? Like,
I'm on social media.
But if you're talking about the 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds who are traditionally way more right, and they're not really posted on social media to say like, oh, you know, trying to slag off the left bit, but they're not really on social media at all. So they're just walking down the streets with their views and opinions that are heard more. Like, if you look at social media, you would have thought everybody's a lot more left-leaning, but basically, I guess the older generations aren't on social media, so there's a lot less, from what I can see, hate spread about that. And I do, if I hang out with a 50 or 60-year-old, they're not going to sort of insult me for being from the south or being slightly right-leaning.
I can understand that. But I'd also say in the older generations, they tend to be more right-leaning.
Yeah.
Say the majority voters of the Conservative Party are pensioners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's definitely the groups that you associate with. I've been in a few political Facebook groups, and that is a lot of actually older people that will be arguing with one another, and it's just, honestly, it's just a general shitstorm.
Yeah.
Everyone just completely tearing each other to shreds, and not having an open conversation as we're trying to have now. But I think this is actually coming down to when you do get into the clash between the left and the right, it's due to a polarisation, and that people see themselves as very far away from each other because we call it left and a right.
Yeah.
Not really many people think about the same.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But most people, what they want out of life would actually be quite similar.
Mm-hmm. So this is it. Like 95% of what the left or right parties believe in is the same.
Yeah.
It's literally like there's so many policies that are the same, but that jumped out to me when you said like about the left and right is literally the opposite. It's literally the opposite, when in reality there's a lot more in common that's similar about those two. So like that, just those words there basically incite some form of hatred, because they are the opposite of you. They're not 95% similar, they're the opposite.
But there's also a foundational belief or say an ontological belief that comes into play here, how you actually perceive reality itself to be constructed. So to phrase that in another way, human nature.
Yeah.
If you believe humans are innately greedy, competitive, and out for one another, generally that informs a right-wing belief.
Yeah.
If you believe humans are naturally compassionate and pathetic, loving, you'd lean towards the left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you believe that a society can be ordered based upon how humans would behave to it.
Yeah.
Hence, the solidarity of one and the competition of another.
And I guess out of those two camps there, it does feel as if obviously most people are going to be a blend of those two, but it does feel as if like in order to get ahead in life, especially in most of Western society, it should be that competition aspect. Most people do perform better under competition. So if you have a society that doesn't encourage competition, that society in some regard would fall down when it's competed against a society that does do that. However, it's not to say that the left side, if you're not as competitive, they could be a lot happier just because they're not, they're not earning as much money, or they don't have access to like luxury cars or something like that. Doesn't mean that society is worse as such just because they have less money. They could be a lot happier because they're not having to, enter the rat race where you're having to compete against people,
it's
which
also
can be
relative.
tiring for people.
And if you see more people with luxury cars and you can't get those cars, you're going to see that as a void, as an emptiness.
Well, actually, that brings us really well back onto why does the left hate the right then. So if the right are all about competition, about getting one ahead, getting basically it's going to earn more money, and then you have the left side who are going to be a bit more compassionate, level playing fields as such, and then you see somebody driving a luxury car and they happen to be voting right, probably because
and you yourself don't have a luxury car.
Yeah, so in a way, is that jealousy then? Is that one of the key reasons?
I think that is an absolutely okay conclusion to make, and in a deductive argument. Although I will just to bring this into the mix. Is there any psychological traits which would help someone in a competitive society?
Is there a psychological, as in psychopath, you mean, or would it? Yes. Oh, yeah.
So what is it? Something like less than 5% of the entire global population is psychopaths, which is still quite large actually. But 83% of CEOs are psychopaths or have psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah. I think most people do believe in the safety net, even if you're like slightly right leaning or left leaning, or even if you're very right leaning. I think everybody believes in some form of a benefit system to say if your children don't, if you don't have a house or you've got children, you should get extra money. Everybody believes in that. So it comes back to that point where we said earlier around why have we got it as opposite? Why is it right and left? And could you think of a way? Cause I was trying to think of it a way of wording it then that's a lot better than that, but I literally can't think of. I'm so brainwashed to think like right left.
Well, libertarian authoritarian is one, but that sounds.
I mean, I barely know what you're talking about when you say this word. I literally like. I don't consider myself highly educated, but I'm like a reasonable amount, and that doesn't mean much to me.
I mean, still, but like England's a really interesting subject for this because as finding a centre path, although we actually do tend to go left, right, left, right, we're quite you could say socially democratic, if you will, which I think Scandinavian countries are often exalted for. But say the fact that we have a capitalistic, competitive economic system with a welfare system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a socialist idea.
Yeah, exactly. So you're blending it. Again, it's a centralist. It's
but that's the funny thing. We tend to go towards the right with because the Conservatives tend to be in longer than Labour Party. Mm-hmm. There's more money backing them. Whatever it is. They tend to be it, and we go far to the right. But then when that doesn't go right, we have to then use a socialist method to bring us out of whatever's gone wrong. Yeah.
Well, I think Elon Musk brings up a very good point about that. I don't know if you would have heard of it, where like I guess for all intents and purposes in terms of his businesses, they're very right-wing, very competitive businesses that are changing the world, and but one of the key things that they're doing is introducing a lot of automation. So people will no longer be driving cars. There'll be no more lorry drivers. There'll be no more taxi drivers. How much of today's work is going to be automated? And he's doing all this, which is effectively putting people out of work.
Yeah.
And the more that we do that, the more it seems as if we're going to have to be left leaning, because what do you do with the people that can't get a job because now there's automation doing that job?
People have been speaking about this since the mid 20th century. Automation. I mean, in the Industrial Revolution, even a lot of people put out of work. A lot of people had to then come to the cities to find factory work, but the factory using machines didn't need so many people. If we keep going this direction to convenience and automation, there's going to be so little jobs to have. The only jobs are going to be to fix the machines or the robots.
So should it be we should be very right-leaning right now, be very competitive, make sure we maximise productivity, and then when we get to a certain point, it should always go the other way. Where we should be a lot more left-leaning to be, because then at this point now we've built up all the automation, you've done a lot of the hard work, and everybody's lives could be a lot better because you've got robots doing everything or whatnot, and then at that point, then you can make the hard switch left.
We'll see. Okay, so socialism as an idea is hundreds of years old. It's not.
Okay, let me start. Okay, so I think we've just lost a good 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation, maybe a lot more. So this is a take 2.
Should we just wrap this?
But yeah,
wrap
we'll
this
go into
up,
a bit of a conclusion, and we'll wrap up and we'll say like we'll go back to the original topic. Okay, so
It's going well.
the whole point was why does the left hate the right?
Yep.
And in my mind there were 2 key points there that we spoke about. One was maybe the age differences. So if you're an older person, you might not be on social media. So and I in general wouldn't be hanging around with sort of 50 and 60-year-olds as much. So when I go down to a pub, I'm not hearing that sort of that difference of opinion. And the second one was on jealousy. So it's a lot easier to hate somebody who has more money, like a luxury car and such. And as we discussed, it seems to be that if you're in this competitive sort of right-leaning world, you're probably more likely to have more money because you're hoarding it, or you're more focused on doing a job that gives you money. And it's a lot more difficult to be in that position of basically power, where you have a bit more money than somebody else, and say like, oh, I hate that other person because they have less money than me. It's a very difficult
they're
thing.
above me kind of thing.
The one final point I'll make, which I thought about a few times, but I forgot to mention it before I go into what your thoughts are. And it was you're the one who brought it up actually, where the right now the conservatives are in power, or right wingers in power. So by default, you're going to be a lot more vocal, going like, I don't like the current system. So like you're going to be more vocal about telling other people. Whereas if you're currently in power as such, you're probably going to be a lot less vocal about it in general. So what were your sort of thoughts on it in general?
So I'll try. I touched on a lot of things, so I'm going to try and bring it together. I believe that the reason that there is such polarisation between the left and the right, I won't side with the question as why the left specifically hate the right. I'm going to say that they are against one another.
They're equal. So you still think they're equal in terms of hate?
If you could measure it, I want to say equal, quite, because they're just polarised against each other because they just don't understand one another. That's why they can't have an open discussion, because it's not just disagreeing on certain policies, it's disagreeing on the on reality itself and how you believe reality to be, your ontological belief.
Yeah, okay.
And so because they can't understand one another, they just hate each other because they can't see eye to eye.
Yeah, and I guess you do think there's an equal amount though, just to clarify, you think there's an equal amount between the left and the right?
I mean, if I had to go there, I'd probably say there's more towards the left from the right.
Okay. That's it's interesting because I completely disagree with
just
that.
the devil's advocate.
Yeah, like for me, like, but again, it's all about what you've experienced, and for me, I've experienced.
That's from my experience as well, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
But we come from different places, different backgrounds, you know. So that's interesting in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and this, I guess, it shows why there could be a lot of hate in the world. Full stop, is because what I've found, interacted with, perceived with meeting people in life seems to be quite different to what you found. So for me to have the same opinion as you is going to be very difficult, and vice versa, when, you know, the way that people interact with me is different, and the way people have interacted with you is different.
It's because I've got a Trotsky moustache.
And I can't even grow a moustache, so that's probably why.
This is why he loves the right wing, you know.
We should have actually sat, I was thinking this earlier, I should have sat on that side of the sofa. So
which one's
like,
left? Oh,
I'm on the left side of the camera, so
yeah.
I'm slightly See, I'm a bit more centrist than you, obviously. I'm close to the centre of the sofa.
No, still solidarity though. You know, we can switch sides, sit in each other's seat.
Yeah,
you know, that could have been an interesting argument actually, to try and argue someone else's position.
That's a good idea for a video.
Yeah, both of you
that.
actually try and play the other side.
You have to like get an opinion on something and then like completely switch it. Yeah. Okay. So let's wrap up there. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Thanks for coming on, Johnny, and it's good to hear your opinions. The big words there that I didn't understand, but it's always good to get people higher educated than yourself on the show. Yeah, this is the first video we filmed. I don't know if it would be the first video uploaded, but if you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Especially if you sort of agreed or disagreed with any of the points we've made. We're both very open to, I guess, seeing other points of view. This is just two people, and obviously there's a lot of different views and perspectives that everybody would have had. And yeah, any final remarks? We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, just following on from what you've said. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. I know I have. I've enjoyed discussing this with you, Richard. If you agreed with me, or even if you disagreed with me, give me a follow on Instagram. Just Johnny Things. Come find us, Johnny Cosmo. And yeah, that's it from me.
Cool. Done. Hey, one video done.
You can shout out.